Portal 2 is a 2011 first-person puzzle platform video game developed and published by Valve Corporation. It is the sequel to Portal and was released on April 19, 2011, for Microsoft Windows, OS X, Linux, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. The retail versions of the game are distributed by Electronic Arts, while online distribution of the Windows, OS X and Linux versions is handled by Valve's content delivery service Steam. Portal 2 was announced on March 5, 2010, following a week-long alternate reality game based on new patches to the original game. Before the game's release on Steam, the company released the Potato Sack, a second multi-week alternate reality game, involving 13 independently developed titles which culminated in a distributed computing spoof to release Portal 2 several hours early. The game retains Portal's gameplay elements, and adds new features, including tractor beams, laser redirection, bridges made of light, and paint-like gels accelerating the player's speed, allowing the player character to jump higher or place portals on any surface. These gels were created by the team from the Independent Games Festival-winning DigiPaint student project HAG. The Power of Paint. In the single-player campaign, the player controls protagonist Shell, awoken from suspended animation after many years, who must navigate the now dilapidated Aperture Science Enrichment Center during its reconstruction by the reactivated GLaDOS, a powerful supercomputer. The storyline introduces new characters, including Wheatley and Cave Johnson. Ellen McLain reprised the role of GLaDOS. Jonathan Coulton and The National each produced a song for the game. Portal 2 also includes a two-player cooperative mode, in which the robotic player characters Atlas and Peabody are each given a portal gun and are required to work together to solve puzzles. Valve provided post-release support for the game, including additional downloadable content and a simplified map editor to allow players to create and share test chambers with others. Although some reviewers initially expressed concerns about the difficulty of expanding Portal into a full sequel, Portal 2 received critical acclaim, particularly for its writing, pacing, and dark humor. The voice work of McLain, Merchant, and Simmons were also praised, as were the new gameplay elements, the challenging but surmountable learning curve, and the additional cooperative mode. Some journalists ranked Portal 2 among the best games of 2011, and several named it their game of the year. Portal 2 has since been hailed as one of the greatest video games of all time. Gameplay. Portal 2 is a first-person perspective puzzle game. The player takes the role of Chell in the single-player campaign, as one of two robots, Atlas and Peabody, in the cooperative campaign, or as a simplistic humanoid icon in community-developed puzzles. These four characters can explore and interact with the environment. Characters can withstand limited damage but will die after sustained injury. There is no penalty for falling onto a solid surface, but falling into bottomless pits or toxic pools kills the player character immediately. When Chell dies in the single-player game, the game restarts from a recent checkpoint. In the cooperative game, the robot respawns shortly afterwards without restarting the puzzle. The goal of both campaigns is to explore the Aperture Science Laboratory, a complicated, malleable mechanized maze. While most of the game takes place in modular test chambers with clearly defined entrances and exits, other parts occur in behind-the-scenes areas where the objective is less clear. The initial tutorial levels guide the player through the general movement controls and illustrate how to interact with the environment. The player must solve puzzles using the portal guns or Aperture Science handheld portal device, which can create two portals connecting two distant surfaces depicted as matte white, continuous, and flat. Characters can use these portals to move between rooms or to fling objects or themselves across a distance. Outlines of placed portals are visible through walls and other obstacles for easy location. Game elements include thermal discouragement beams, excursion funnels, and hard light bridges, all of which can be transmitted through portals. Aerial faith plates launch the player or objects through the air and sometimes into portals. The player must disable turrets or avoid their line of sight. The weighted storage cube has been redesigned, and there are new types. Redirection cubes, which have prismatic lenses that redirect laser beams. Spherical edgeless safety cubes, an antique version of the weighted storage cube used in the underground levels, and a cube turret hybrid created by Wheatley after taking control of Aperture. The heart-decorated weighted companion cube reappears briefly. Early demonstrations included pneumatic diversity vents, shown to transport objects and transfer suction power through portals, but these do not appear in the final game. All of these game elements open locked doors, or help or hamper the character from reaching the exit. Paint-like gels impart certain properties to surfaces or objects coated with them. Players can use orange propulsion gel to cross surfaces more quickly, blue repulsion gel to bounce from a surface, and white conversion gel to allow surfaces to accept portals. Only one type of gel can be effective on a certain surface at a time only. Some surfaces, such as grills, cannot be coated with a gel. Water can block or wash away gels, returning the surface or object to its normal state. The game includes a two-player cooperative mode. Two players can use the same console with a split screen, or can use a separate computer or console. Microsoft Windows, Mac OS X, and PlayStation 3 users can play with each other regardless of platform. A patch provided in late 2012 added split-screen support for Windows and Mac OS X users under Big Picture mode. Both player characters are robots that control separate portal guns and can use the other character's portals. Each player's portals are of a different color scheme, whereof one is blue and purple and the other is orange and red. A calibration chamber separates the characters to teach the players to use the communication tools and portals. Most later chambers are less structured and require players to use both sets of portals for laser or funnel redirection, launches, and other maneuvers. The game provides voice communication between players, and online players can temporarily enter a split-screen view to help coordinate actions. Players can ping to draw the other player's attention to walls or objects, start countdown timers for synchronized actions, and perform joint gestures such as waving or hugging. The game tracks which chambers each player has completed and allows players to replay chambers they have completed with new partners. Portal 2's lead writer Eric Walpole estimates each campaign to be about 6 hours long. Portal 2 contains in-game commentary from the game developers, writers, and artists. The commentary, accessible after completing the game once, appears on node icons scattered through the chambers. According to Valve, each of the single-player and cooperative campaigns is 2 to 2.5 times as long as the campaign in Portal, with the overall game 5 times as long. Plot. Backstory. The Portal series is linked to the Half-Life series. The events in Portal take place between the first and second Half-Life games, while most of Portal 2 is set a long time after the events in Portal and Half-Life 2. Before Portal, Aperture Science conducted experiments to determine whether human subjects could safely navigate dangerous test chambers, until the artificial intelligence GLaDOS, governing the laboratory, killed its employees. At the end of the first game, the protagonist Shell destroys GLaDOS and momentarily escapes the facility, but is dragged back inside by an unseen figure later identified by writer Eric Walpole as the party escort bot. Her promotional comic shows estranged Aperture Science employee Doug Ratman, who used graffiti to guide the player in Portal, placing Chell into suspended animation to save her life, until the beginning of Portal 2. Single-player campaign. Chell wakes in a stasis chamber resembling a motel room, where an artificial voice guides her through a cognitive test before she is put back to sleep. When she awakens again, the Aperture Science complex has become dilapidated and overgrown and appears on the verge of destruction. Wheatley, a personality core, helps her attempt to escape via the test chambers. In the process they accidentally reactivate the dormant GLaDOS, who separates Chell from Wheatley and rebuilds the laboratory. Having done so, GLaDOS subjects Chell to new obstacle courses until Wheatley helps her escape once again. The pair sabotage the turret and neurotoxin manufacturing plants before confronting GLaDOS and performing a core transfer, which replaces GLaDOS, with Wheatley as the laboratory's controlling intelligence. He is quickly corrupted by his newfound power and becomes malevolent, and when he attaches GLaDOS's personality core to a potato battery, GLaDOS tells Chell that Wheatley was intentionally designed as an intelligence-dampening sphere, producing illogical thoughts, created to hamper her own personality. Denying this, Wheatley drops Chell and GLaDOS through an elevator shaft into the laboratory's abandoned lowest level. Thereafter Chell ascends through the laboratories in order of construction, periodically hearing audio recordings of Aperture Science's founder, Cave Johnson, through which the player learns that Johnson became embittered and deranged as his company lost money and prestige, until his poisoning by moon dust, whereafter his assistant Caroline became a test subject for a mind-to-computer transfer experiment, and ultimately became GLaDOS. Chell retrieves GLaDOS, and the two form a reluctant partnership to stop Wheatley before his mistakes destroy the laboratories. During their search, GLaDOS is troubled by the identification of herself as Caroline. Chell and GLaDOS return to the modern chambers and face Wheatley, who is driven by GLaDOS's software to test him against a series of traps, which Chell escapes. In their final confrontation, Chell attaches 3 corrupted personality cores to Wheatley, allowing GLaDOS a second core transfer, restoring her control. With the laboratory's nuclear reactor on the brink of meltdown, the roof collapses, revealing the night sky, whereupon Chell places a portal on the moon overhead, causing the vacuum of space to pull her and Wheatley through the other portal still inside the chamber. GLaDOS retrieves Chell, who falls unconscious, leaving Wheatley in space with a corrupt personality core orbiting him. When Chell awakens, GLaDOS claims to have learned valuable lessons about humanity from the remnants of Caroline, then deletes Caroline's personality files and reverts to her usual attitude, but decides that Chell is not worth the trouble of trying to kill, and releases her. Chell then traverses the building in an elevator, serenaded by the laboratory's robotic sentinels in a song entitled Cara Mia Addio. On the surface, she enters a wheat field from a corrugated metal shed, with the charred and battered weighted companion cube, supposedly incinerated during the events of Portal, thrown after her. In a post-credits scene, Wheatley floats helplessly through space with the corrupt personality core, and regrets betraying Chell. Cooperative campaign. The cooperative story takes place after the single-player campaign and has some ties into it, but players are not required to play them in order. Player characters Atlas and Peabody are bipedal robots who navigate 5 sets of test chambers together, each with a fully functioning portal gun. After completing a test chamber, the robots are disassembled and reassembled at the next chamber. After completing each set of chambers, they are returned to a central hub. The puzzles in each set of chambers focus on a particular testing element or puzzle-solving technique. In the first 4 sets, GLaDOS prepares the robots to venture outside of the test systems of Aperture Laboratories to recover data disks. She destroys them and restores their memories to new bodies, which also happens when they die in a test chamber hazard. At first, GLaDOS is excited about her non-human test subjects, but later becomes dissatisfied because the two robots cannot truly die. At the end of the story, the robots gain entry to the vault, where humans are stored in stasis. GLaDOS gives thanks to the robots on locating the humans, whom she sees as new test subjects, and destroys the robots.